and welcome to the Rollwise podcast, the show that talks about things related to tabletop RPGs, games, and other stuff. This week, we were inspired to make an episode, or at least have a conversation about plot twists in games. This kind of came up in my brain, and it kind of percolated in the back there because I had just finished the TV show Agatha All Along on Disney, and I don't want to spoil it or anything like that, but Agatha All Along had a very it included some stuff at the very end that tried to make the show very good. But speaking about a different show that had a lot of plot twists, like Usual Suspects, like I think that Usual Suspects is my go-to version of like that movie hit me so hard when I watched it the first time. I was like floored.
Oh yeah, it's mind blowing. Yeah, Usual Suspects, Sixth Sense.
Hmm.
Um, Spoiler: he's dead. For the Sixth Sense.
Spoiler on 30-year-old movie.
I always like to do that on that movie. Fight Club had a good
Mhm.
plot twist. I think the best. Yeah. So
And it's interesting because I think that many of the TV shows and movies that we watch that have those that are able to introduce a plot twist that you like feels like you didn't necessarily see it coming. I mean, honestly, there could have been someone that noticed, for the Usual Suspects and was just like, "Oh, that was so predictable that he's just making it up based on that." But I would have been like, "Wow,
I
that's
think The Usual Suspects is a hard one. I don't think there's
mhm,
enough clues in that, but I think other movies like Sixth Sense and like
yeah,
Fight Club, I think like those two
yeah,
had
you could in those
a
ones,
lot of hints that you could figure out if you were
mhm.
really perceptive. But like that's part of the thing. That's part of what makes those plot twists really effective. That's what makes those plot twists really effective. Twists for people in English. And Mike's laughing at me because he did that earlier before we started recording. But anyways,
Mm,
I think
tongue twister.
it's really makes the twist better when you can say, "Oh, that's what this, and this." Like those hints were all there. That's the part that's important. Like when you're watching The Sixth Sense, again, spoiler, he's dead. And you go, "Oh, that's why he." Like you're like, "Oh, that's why he never like touched anything, or no one ever acknowledged him really." Is because he was dead, not
Mhm.
because they were just rude.
That's true, that's true. So so I think when you look at, like, Sixth Sense is a perfect example because I think there were enough clues. And so have you had a situation where you can think of, like, to yourself, like, what do you think makes a plot twist memorable in, like, a tabletop RPG type setting, adventure, campaign, what have you?
I think it's those situations where you can see the lead up, and then the lead up kind of goes a different direction because it's harder
Mhm,
in a tabletop role playing game because it's just harder. Like it's more on the spot and stuff like that. But if you can feel the lead up or the twist was very organic and like
mhm,
the what you don't want to do is you don't want to make it feel like it's out of left field and like you just made it up on the spot. So
mhm.
you want to be able to kind of look back at the stuff that happened and be like, oh, that's the way that this happened. Um, Rather than, you know, it being something that doesn't really make sense.
Well, and it's interesting because in tabletop RPGs, and the one thing that I've always noticed is that like in because as the GM, in many of these games, it's kind of up to me to give all the clues. Like
Mm-hmm.
I have to present them. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that when you present all the clues, and I think like games like Cthulhu Confidential, where it uses the gumshoe, where it's just like it recognizes you're going to get important clues, but it's also going to say, I'm going to give you more than just the important clues so that you can at least go, okay, well, I have now a set of clues to work with, as opposed to situations where you ran like a basing game when you didn't get a clue in a specific situation because you didn't hit a roll. So the absence of information makes it harder to appreciate the twist, I think.
Right. Well, I think a twist really works when like the person can tease it without giving too much information. Because if you give the players too much information, they'll just figure it out. So
Hmm.
it's this balancing act between the two. Like like one of the best plot twists in a role playing game that we've had recently was that Monster of the Week game that you ran
Mm.
for Jeff and I. Where and like I don't know if there were really clues before, but the reveal was like we just didn't expect it. Like
Hmm.
it wasn't like it made sense, but it wasn't out of left field, but and it made sense, but it was a total surprise. Like we did
Yeah,
not expect what happened.
sure.
And I think that was perfect.
Yeah, well, and that was if anybody is wondering, that was one of the pre-written adventures that they have in the supplement book there for Monster of the Week. And it was honestly, it was a fun one to run because it's a time because in Monster of the Week forces you to like barrel ahead because you have a clock that you're kind of going against.
Mhm.
You're kind of going through the different things until it's sunset and the worst things happen. So you have to kind of force yourself ahead, even if you don't fully understand everything that's going on because your timer is kind of ticking
Mhm.
down, but you do get all those clues and everything like that. And I really liked that reveal because it was one of those like almost Agatha Christie-esque moments where everybody was in the room and everything is happening all at once, and it was just like
Mhm.
uh.
Right, that was really effective, like, that was
Mhm.
really good.
Yeah, and so I thought that one was really good, and I think that in our investigation plot twist, those that's where I've noticed that the plot twist for us for has been always good. But have you have other games that you've experienced good twist to the story that you've either been able to run and your players have been like whoa, or
I'm not very good at plot twists,
oh
to
yeah.
be frank. I don't really use them very often because 'cause they're a literary device I don't think I'm very good at.
Mhm.
Mostly because I think I give too much information out.
Mm.
I don't know if it's because I'm impressed with myself when I'm doing the thing or what. But I try to make moments and not like a plot twist. So maybe I'll try it sometime. But it's not something I use very often. I have used it effectively in games that I played. One of them was my fault because basically,
You created a
uh,
plot twist against
as a
yourself.
player, yeah, as against myself, because it happened in that Earthon game that I talk about all the time,
Yeah.
where my our characters were killed by a horror at the end of the game. But one of the things that had happened is I
Mhm.
had said it's a necromancer, or a nethermancer is what they're called in Earthon, but I had kept saying that
Mhm.
without ever even thinking that something else does the same thing that makes these zombies. I was like, oh, it's
Mhm.
a nethermancer, it's a nethermancer, it's a nethermancer. And then we got in the cairn, which is the like dungeon, and it was like, oh, it's not a nethermancer, it's a very nasty horror thing making constructs. Oh, plot twist that I did on myself. um, which I never really thought about it as that until then, but yeah, that was something that I did myself.
Yeah.
um, yeah. Other games. I mean, you've run games with better plot
Mhm.
twists, like the Vason game with the Hell Pig.
Mhm.
Um, the plot twist was pretty good in that one. I think I kind of saw it coming. Like I kind of
Mhm.
had an idea early and that's the like. So I wasn't surprised, but it was good still.
But it was funny though because in that game I kind of said something slightly incorrectly, and all of a sudden you had knives out for the priest. Like
Well,
that
I
was probably
didn't.
my
I
the
didn't.
the rest of the party was like, "Shing, let's get him."
Yeah, yeah. The rest of the party did, but I didn't because I kind of was. I felt kind of clued in on that game.
Mhm.
I don't know why something just clicked, and I knew Brent knew what was happening. Like I knew that she
Yeah,
was the like I kind of knew spoilers. I kind of knew that she was the pig, and I kind of knew who was doing it, but I didn't really know. Like my character kind of didn't know that.
yeah.
So I didn't know how to like. That was what was interesting about that game is I didn't know how to get from
Mhm.
A to B without metagaming. So that was why I was very hands off a lot of times in a lot of the decisions because I kind of knew what was going on in my
Sure.
head, but the character had no idea.
Yeah.
The plot twist in the what was the name of the fish that was in the town that we destroyed? The plot twist in that one was totally lost on us.
Yeah, and that's what's interesting because I think that, when so in foreshadowing a plot twist, I think for me, I like to make sure that like it because what made the Hellpig one better because I learn every game that I play, especially when I'm playing new games and everything like that. When we played the first Vason game, these were out of the one of the first mystery book that they put out.
Mhm.
That one I learned a lot about how my players.
That was called Silver and something, wasn't it?
Yeah, I don't remember the name of the adventure, but it was like the silverfish something like
Right.
that. But it was interesting because seeing how you guys approach the investigation helped me understand how you discover clues, what your characters were doing, how you approached it. And I think that,
Like
like
a group of half-wits running into a town. That's
well, and so I and I learned a very valuable lesson because, me personally, I don't want to make the plot twist too predictable. And I have to say that, the way it's sounding right now is it makes it sound like every game I'm like, with the twists, like M. Night
Well,
Shyamalan.
no, it's just the three that I can think of are very
Yeah.
memorable.
Yeah.
One because we won because we just ignored the plot twist entirely, and we're all like, "Oh no, we did a good
We
job."
won because we said we won.
Yeah,
But I think that in the games where the opportunity presents itself, to the point of that first one is that I was playing very coy with the information. I was making you guys like really work for it. And unfortunately, when you do that, in my opinion, it actually makes it harder to get to the plot twist because I'm trying to make it not predictable, but in doing so, I'm making the field so open that you're like, we didn't know what to expect, so you couldn't subvert our expectations.
right.
Whereas in the second one, I knew how you guys were playing base and I understood how you were doing. And so both of us kind of leveled up our game, both sides. That me as the game master, I leveled up, and you guys as players leveled up from that first experience. And I think that that's why we got to the subversion a lot better.
I think it was mostly on you. I think you ran the game a lot better the second
You,
time. I don't think it was us.
I admit, you guys still made some interesting choices, like totally derailing the game right out of the gate. But that, we won't talk about that. I think that that's what makes it really tough because I think that as a DM, you have to at least make expectations for you to subvert. And I
Mhm.
think that that's hard to do in some cases if you're trying not to be too predictable, because a lot of the times when you're generating your stories, sometimes you generate a story based on what experience have consumed in your own media and
Yeah,
everything, and your friends probably have consumed those same stories as
mhm.
well. So
And
it's
and the
like,
first instinct when you're doing plot twists or mysteries or any of that stuff is
mhm,
like to make it complicated, to make like, oh, they'll figure this out if I don't do these other things. And I assure you, your players will not figure it out, no matter how simple you make it.
yeah.
I assure you.
Yeah, but that's what I kinda learned is that, like, unless you have a really devoted, type, like a person that's really devoted to murder mysteries and all those kinds, like, people like, when you play those games, everyone's kinda it's a level playing field. Everyone's prone to making dumb mistakes, me included, like, so you don't make it too hard is all I'm trying to say. Uh, so, but I do find it's interesting though because I think when you look at like plot twists outside of that, because I have two plot twists that I really think are good to talk about. The first plot twist is probably my favorite plot twist of all time because it went on for months. It
Oh, the
was
traitor?
months. Yeah, there was months of this lead up for this traitor, and I loved it because I had inserted this information like so early into the game, and it just was allowed to become it just became the new baseline. It was normal. This was a normal way that they went about their business. And then when the trader reveal happened, it was like they were just it, and I'd given them clues, and they were, and at one point the players were mad at me because they were like, "You're metagaming as a DM," and I'm like, "How do I do that?" Like, but then the reveal meant that
I,
they
I
had,
I'm telling the story. Everything I'm doing is metagaming.
yeah,
Like
DM fiat for everything. You know what I mean? But truthfully, there was a logical and story reason that I was keeping one step ahead of the players because the players were feeding me information through a conduit I created that they literally sought out.
right.
They were, it was one of those things where it was, and since it was a Game of Thrones esque, political intrigue type game, I had inserted that kind of thing kind of on accident almost at the beginning, but then it just worked so well that I just kept it, and I was like,
Right.
oh, let's keep
Yeah.
it. But then the other plot twist that that wasn't good is the plot twist that made us into the bad guys. That was like
Right. Yeah, you told me about
that
that one.
that
Yeah.
would so like when you're subverting expectations, you have to understand what your players are going to feel at the end of that. And if you have players that build characters with the purpose of being heroes, and you subvert the plot twist to make them into villains, that's a bad plot twist.
I mean, it could work for some people. Like some people wouldn't feel bad, but depending on how long the game is, it could feel pretty bad. Like I wouldn't be happy with that usually.
Yeah, like it was, well, basically let's just say that the players were so upset by this. We just all retired our characters and had like a redo to understand, like, because we were just like, oh, we just murdered a bunch of innocent people and that were under the thumb of the local mafia, and what happened?
Mistakes were made. That's what happened.
We missed a bunch of context clues that were, this is again why it's really important to like really, you know explain the situation so the characters can understand. Because if you feel like your characters are behaving in a way that like doesn't make sense, you might want to go, okay, let's back up and make sure you understand the
Right.
context. You're
Right.
going into a place that says Mike's Bakery. There's kids playing with dough balls on the floor, and you want to go, what?
Right. Right.
So I think that
Yeah. No, and I think, yeah, I do play some games where I subvert expectations a little bit. But it's usually not a big plot twist. It's usually kind of a, a bigger kind of
Mhm.
like running an alien game where, or it's not an alien, like that sort
Mhm.
of thing. Like I would do something like that where everyone's expecting an alien to happen.
Yeah.
Like I think one of the things that I came up with, I was thinking about your alien game or a mothership game.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think would be really funny is to like play a mothership game or an alien game where everybody thinks like aliens are going to be there and then just have nothing happen. Just like have the players like fix the ship, talk to each other for a while, like a one shot where like nothing actually happens, and then the end is like, yeah, you make it home. Good job, guys.
Basically, like 4 hours of tension and then just like
Yeah,
a no release. I don't know. I think that release is really cool.
that might just be fun for me as a TM, but I think you could have some like I think what you would do in that game, what I would try to do is like make that tension and paranoia the villain.
Mhm.
Like what's around the corner, what are we doing to solve this, like all this stuff. And there'd probably be some overarching thing like fixing the ship is like the challenge, and
Mhm.
like you could probably fail at fixing a ship or something like that, but yeah, but like have no actual alien in it or anything and just be like, oh yeah, you fix the ship, you make it
They're
home, good
space
job, guys.
truckers. I don't know why you guys made this so tense.
Yeah, I don't know why you guys brought the flamethrower.
Why would you bring the flamethrower to the fuel bay?
Yeah.
Weird.
But that might just be fun for me. Maybe
Yeah.
that might just be fun for a GM thing. But
So
that kind of subversion is sometimes funny. Like the
it
twist is there is no twist.
it could be. And I think that, when you talk about like plot twists being like, because I think for me, I've been less successful when a plot twist is a planned plot twist.
Mhm.
Like and I don't know, and maybe I would really be curious as to what people in the comments how they experience plot twists in their own games or put them in their games. Is that I've always found that like, as the players are playing the game, it's been more effective for me to recognize what they're doing and then basically say, okay, there's an opportunity here to make the story more interesting,
Right.
like because of some things that contextually make sense with the situation, but when you recontextualize it, now it's a twist as opposed to just the straight through line.
And that's what makes it hard for a role playing game is that
Hmm.
if you're writing a plot twist into a story, like
Hmm.
you dictate what happens and you can dictate everything that leads up to that plot twist.
Hmm.
With players, you can't. So you almost, in my opinion, that would be my big tip for this sort of thing is if you're trying to construct a plot twist, subverting their expectations or whatever,
Hmm.
you kind of have to do it organically, especially in a campaign.
Yeah.
If it's a one shot, it's going to be a little bit more directed. Like you're going to have more planning for it, and hopefully the reveal works.
Hmm.
But like for a campaign, it definitely comes about an organic growth. It definitely comes from something the player said or
Hmm.
something that an action that they took that kind of can lead you down this road. Like you said, the guy that they went to you kind of planned for him to be, maybe a spy. And then down the line, it was like, oh, yeah, he's the big spy. He's like the big bad. Like,
Hmm.
and that sort of thing, you kind of have to do organically in a campaign.
Hmm.
For one shots, it's going to be a little bit more direct. You're going to try and write it that way,
Hmm.
like the Hell Pig one, where
Yeah.
like the twist was that the pig was, the girl disappeared, and we've been looking for her, and then the twist was that she was the monster.
Hmm.
Um, which was a good twist, but it was like again, it was more directed, and you could see it coming a little bit.
Mhm. Yeah, a little
Um,
more telegraphed in that situation, and
well,
I think
because it's written
most
because it's written to be
yeah.
a twist right away, and
Mhm.
that's going to be your difficulty in one shots is you're going to write it, and one of two things are going to happen, both of which happened in the Vasins game. The first one, it was a written campaign. It had a kind of twist or mystery involved,
Mhm.
and we just blew past it. Like we were just
Yeah.
like, nah, that we're gonna save the
Why
girl.
why does
That's
he
what we
smell
decided.
like fish?
Yeah,
Weird.
we're gonna save the girl. That's our focus. And
Yeah.
then the other one, we bought into it and we did a little bit better, and because
Mhm.
it just worked out better that way. But they're going to be a little bit more exposed because they're pre-written scenarios or one
Mhm.
shots. Like if you write a one shot, you want to have a plot twist, you're
Mhm.
gonna have to try and build that plot twist into the one shot,
Mhm.
but you also have to be ready to expand to respond organically to make it make sense with what the players are doing.
Yeah, and I think that that's the one thing that's always a tricky part about it is that plot twists are really easy to introduce story inconsistency,
Mhm.
and it may not be it may not be something you intend to do, but especially in a campaign, because we've played campaigns and everything like that, and something seems cool, and all of a sudden somebody goes, "Well, how does that work with this other thing that directly contradicts the ability of this plot twist to exist?" And you're like,
And now you have a reality warping character in your game.
You're like, well, you're just gonna have to find out how that works.
Or you learn the amazing GM talent of gaslighting. What? No, that was that
It
wasn't how it
just
worked at all. I don't
you
think you
you
I
misunderstood that entire adventure.
I don't remember it that way.
Well, and it's like even with published adventures, when we were doing like Age of Worms, and like if we can pick that up and kind of go through the other systems, like people have you know, pointed out little story inconsistencies that that you could, and especially in a game like that where it's a published long
Mhm.
form game, where all of a sudden you have this thing that happened here in like the second issue, and all of a sudden in issue 10, you're like, wait, what? How does that work?
Right.
And then
Yeah.
you have to kind of create the bridge yourself. And if you're lucky, you do that in your preparation phase where you actually catch the twist and you can addendum add some addendum to like make it more of an organic feeling between point A and point B. But if you don't, and you just read the adventure and like you hadn't thought about it,
Right.
which is more often what happens to me, is that like I'll read the adventure, be ready to play, and then somebody will point out, one of our good friends is really, he's quite the clever type. He'll be like, wait, pause. And I'll be like, fuck.
Yeah. He doesn't mean me. Always reread the pre-written adventures. Like read it
Mhm,
once, read it twice before you run it because you will one you'll be able to hit those key points better, and two, you'll catch any of those inconsistencies and maybe fix them for your group. If you're writing your own, what I suggest is write an outline of what you want to happen, like and how you can set up that plot twist, but don't set it in stone.
mhm.
So you can change it if you need to, or finesse it a little bit mid story.
Well, and this is one of the oldest GM tricks in the book, in my opinion, is that if you let your players talk about the problem, they might provide you with solutions that you can pick that are better solutions than you came up with. And they're like, wouldn't it be cool if? And you're like, oh, maybe it would be cool.
True.
and
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 you
it's
and usually they won't remember saying that, and so they'll be surprised.
So they might be, yeah. And so the other thing is that I think the one cool part about these kind of twists is that a lot of the twists we've talked about so far have happened in the actual like campaign or adventure portion of it. But you can have these kind of twists even as part of like your lore and how you
Mhm,
build your world and the type of things that you do. And I think that's a really interesting part about homebrew, is that you get many more opportunities, because as you unfurl the world and you kind of like create it as you go, you have the opportunities to set these expectations up front and give yourself plenty of opportunity, plenty of ability to say, okay, well, that thing I set back there, I've now massaged that in a way that it makes it different than you expected, and that's a lot of fun to do. Whereas in like Forgotten Realms, unless you're if you say like, hey, guess what, we're playing in this date in Forgotten Realms, and
right.
anything that happens after that date is all on me. You don't get
Yeah.
to.
It's very discovered. It's a
Yeah.
discovered world versus a discoverable world, which is a,
Mhm,
a homebrew. One thing I will add, a suggestion for folks, if you do plot twists, especially if you write your own, is two things I will say. A, don't be disappointed if the players figure it out,
mhm,
because you did your job. If they figure it out even before the plot twist and they had fun, you did your job. You did a good plot twist. You did a good mystery. They just have it out to be clever enough to figure it out, which is good. You
mhm.
reward them for that. Or don't try not to be disappointed if they just blow by your cleverly populated story. Remember, the focus is them having fun, and players sometimes are dumb. That's me. I mean, me. Most of the time as a player, I'm dumb, so I can say that. Because anybody who's watched some of the streams, like I miss stuff like all the time. And I think I was one of the main drivers of the Vason story we're talking about, where we just decided that rescuing the girl was the most important part. I think I was probably one of the main drivers of that, because I didn't pick up any clues. So
Yeah. Well, and yeah, and exactly. Like the part about the plot twist, don't get so invested in the plot twist that you actually like, hamstring your players,
right.
or make them feel bad for not getting it. Like give them, I mean, consequences in games is a thing, especially campaign play where, if they take certain actions, there's going to be consequences, but don't like make them go, I didn't figure out the plot twist. And now,
Well, and that was the funny part about the Vason game is we were all happy with the end of the Vason game. You were the one that was
I
kind of
was sad.
disappointed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
but we were
I
all
was
like,
just like,
hey, we rescued the girl, and well, the town sank, but that's not really our problem. Like we were all happy with the end of the Vason game.
and it was actually kind of funny because I literally was like, I came back and I was like, guys, I'm sorry I ran that support. And everyone's just like, huh? What are you
Yeah,
talking about? And I was like, I've been beating myself up for the last week for
yeah, we felt like
no
we
reason.
won.
Yeah. And then everyone's like, oh no, we had a great time. And I was like,
Yeah,
oh, well,
and
that
you
changes
were like,
things.
but the town, and we were like, we rescued the girl.
Eh,
we
what's the many versus the one?
we saved a life, and that was what we could do at the time.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. So I think that I think it's interesting to hear everybody's conversation, and if you guys have stories that you want to share, please jump in the comments. We'd really like to hear how that went. So let us know. And of course, if you want to hear more talks like this, where we either talk, give tips, talk about play other games, talk about other games we're playing, our mini reviews, and all that stuff. Don't be afraid to like, subscribe, and all that stuff. We're here and we will probably keep on talking about games. So hopefully
Yeah,
you join us.
we love sharing our stories, and we love hearing your stories. So throw it
Mhm.
out there. And if you want to share your stories with us, you can always comment on the YouTube
The
below.
U-turb.
Or you can catch us on any of our social media at Rollwise, or you can email us at rollwiseguys@gmail.com. We look forward to having a conversation with you about games.
Yeah.
Eh,
So, alrighty.
All
Well,
right.
that's
So,
it for this week.
as always, roll well, roll wise, and be safe out there, everybody.
See ya.